welcome everyone to this special Cloud Technologies webcast. And if you're like me, you don't know a great deal about cloud. Cloud's actually one of those things that I'm really excited about learning in 2021. I've been going through all my goal setting for 2021. In fact, let's see right here. I've got my little. You might have heard of these rocket books where you can write on them and erase them. Well, I've got the Rocketbook Panda Planner, so I've been going through that, been doing my goal setting. One of my goals for this year, I want to get a lot more knowledgeable about cloud technologies because it is just so prevalent everywhere. To give you an idea of what I've been spending my time on lately, I'm really focused on collaboration technologies. And even in collaboration, I'm developing the new CCNP collaboration track. Even in collaboration, it's all moving to cloud. Cisco has this thing called HCS, Hosted Collaboration Solutions, and that's where instead of having our communications manager here on site, it's out there in the cloud somewhere. So I'm really anxious to learn about cloud myself. I'm curious as to what your experience is. And we're coming to you on a few different streams today. So we're probably not going to be able to answer everyone's questions. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. We've got people coming to us embedded on our website. Just kind of give me a rating if you would. What would you consider to be your level of expertise when it comes to cloud technologies? I would rate mine very low, but we're going to help change that a little bit today. Go ahead and chat that in if you would. Where do you see yourself when it comes to cloud technologies? And I'm guessing we have people on all sides of the spectrum. Well, what we're going to be doing today, and I'm seeing some people up very low, rating themselves a 1, very low. I don't see anybody 0 on cloud. That's interesting. Nobody is here saying that they are an expert. 3 out of 10 is the highest one I've seen. Well, let's see if we can take an incremental step today to sort of see what's possible in the world of cloud. And I thought a perfect person to help us out with that is my very dear friend. I was thinking the other day, how long have I been working off and on with Anthony? I met him in the year 2000. So I'm thrilled to invite onto the screen with us my very good friend, Anthony Sequeira. Anthony, welcome. So great to have you.
And thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm so upset with you. I thought you would tell me that you're an AWS solutions architect by now, and that you're an Azure administrator, and that you're a Google Cloud Platform engineer, and you don't have one of those.
Not a single one.
But you're absolutely right. I love what you mentioned about like Cisco collaboration. I just got done teaching with Ronnie Wong at IT Pro TV. In fact, I'm still in Studio 5. And one of the things that Ronnie and I were talking about was how amazing it is, Kevin, that we have this ability today to like get eval copies of things like the Identity Service Engine from Cisco and Cisco's firepower systems. And we can pop those into AWS or Azure, and we can spin up those eval copies. And for about 18 cents an hour, we can experience the latest firepower technology. So, I mean, it is really an amazing world.
Yeah, that makes me think I was just working on the collaboration track right now. I went out to Amazon. I bought a couple of used HP ProLiant servers so I could spin up a lot of iOS images, or not iOS, ISO images. And it sounds like I could have done all of that on Amazon, which, wow, until about 10 seconds ago, I was unaware of that. So that is really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Sitting next to me making way too much noise is an old Dell Optiplex server that I grabbed off of eBay for about $400, loaded it with 128 gig of RAM, and it's my EVE-NG and CML server, and that thing's getting less and less use all of the time because we're going to have Nexus, iOS, We're going to have all those types of images. In fact, I don't want to sidetrack us into some big Cisco thing here, of course, but I just should mention that I just saw a great presentation on YouTube where this individual took the Cisco SD-WAN solution and they got that running in their EVE-NG, all hosted inside of Google Cloud Platform. So they don't, so this whole thing of go up to eBay and buy this old server that you're going to resuscitate and then have all these power and cooling costs and everything else, I tell you, it's amazing. That the need for on-prem equipment is just vanishing.
When I was thinking about it, I was thinking there's got to be a business driver because people are really, really moving to the cloud. And I thought, oh, well, it's because we don't have to buy, as we've just been discussing, we don't have to buy on-premise servers that we're going to have to maintain. But since you're a lot more familiar with it than I am, any other business drivers or any other sort of motivation that's really pushing people to the cloud other than I don't have to go out and buy a box?
Yeah, one of the things that I always emphasize out of, I don't often do this. Kevin, you're the same way. We're not slaves to like whatever that are, the official teaching materials of a vendor. You and I will look at those and we'll be like, oh, okay, that's how they taught it. Now let me teach it how I think it should be taught. But there is a principle at AWS that we just live and breathe, and it's these pillars of a well-constructed architecture. And I was thinking about this event today, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about the pillars of excellence, and they're really the truth, right? So when you look at those, it's security. A lot of people don't think about enhancing their security with a cloud move. They think the total opposite, that they're going to sacrifice security with a cloud move. But that's not at all true. And we might have time to even elaborate on that today. But then there's performance. We may be accessing, I happen to put 128 gig of RAM into this old server, but what if I needed twice that, 3 times that for some project? So there's performance, there's the optimization that we can achieve, there is the reliability, the high availability. We typically can't afford to put our EVE-NG server in China for when we're visiting Asia Pacific. We can't afford to put one of our EVE-NG servers in Australia when we're going down under, mate. I just realized mid-attempt that I can't do an Australian accent. Shouldn't have gone for that. But it's just remarkable. And so, Kevin, I always think about like, why cloud? Well, you can achieve these incredible solutions that are high performant, high available, that cost far less than they would on-prem. That's another pillar of excellence, as we find cost efficiencies. But there's another thing, and it's something I'll demonstrate when we get to that point, when I show you a little bit of AWS today, Kevin. And this is one that I don't think a lot of people want to think about even, but it's our IT department's level of knowledge, right? So you go to your database guy. I always think of our dear friend, Brian Alderman. And you go to your database guy, Brian Alderman, and you say, hey, Bri, I read about this data warehousing. We need that. We need a data warehouse. And, Brian's talking to the CEO, right? The CEO's like, I read about the data warehouse. We need it. Brian, an old school SQL Server guy, he doesn't really know even step 1 in setting up a data warehouse. And bad news, the next day the boss comes in and says, oh, wait, we're going to do one better. We're going to do a data lake house. We're going to do a lake house design. And now he's like, what? It was bad enough yesterday. I didn't really know how to set up this data warehouse. Now it's going to be some kind of a lake house. So it's amazing how, with the knowledge and the skill set of the AWS staff that are now essentially working for us, it's amazing how we can leverage their expertise. And that's what we're going to do in the demonstration portion of our webinar today. Is I'm going to build a fully functional, ready to go data lakehouse type environment, and we'll be done in under 5 minutes.
Well, I'm anxious to see that because I have never heard of a data lakehouse. So I'm really intrigued as to what that's all about. And I noticed you're wearing an AWS certified shirt. And I was thinking just a few years ago, if you'd asked me about AWS, I'd say, yeah, I know about Amazon Web Services. I've got one of those S3 buckets out there where I've got some files stored and I share my files out. That's almost minuscule when it comes to all the features of AWS. I was out there the other day and I was trying to find my S3 bucket, and it was like just row after row after row of features without like giving us a bullet list. What are some of the big things besides, hey, here's a place to store files or to spin up a server? What else can we do out on AWS? Because I honestly don't know.
Yeah, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's everything, right? It's everything you've ever heard of in IT at this point. It's crazy. So you think of all the cutting edge stuff, Internet of Things, boom, all kinds of services there for that. You think of machine learning or artificial intelligence, which, by the way, I'm going to find the friend who recommended Black Mirror to me on Netflix, and I am unfriending them because I saw a artificial intelligence related Black Mirror episode, and now I'm afraid to use those tools in AWS. So, but all those cutting edge things, Kevin, are right at our fingertips, but also all of the quote unquote traditional things are there, like all kinds of compute options for us, all kinds of storage options for us. You mentioned S3. S3 is popular general purpose object storage for absolutely anything you want to throw at it. Oh, I got some Word docs, I got some log files, I got some JPEGs, I got some MP4s. It's just this general purpose object storage. But what if you wanted network file storage for either Windows or Unix? No problem. What if you wanted, my goodness, block storage? You wanted your virtual machine to think it's got a traditional direct attached, 10 terabyte disk. No problem. So it really is all aspects of IT now, and the list just grows of things we never even thought of from an IT perspective that are up there. And Kev, the other point I wanted to make to you that just blows my mind when I think about it is when you're talking to one of the AWS nerds like me, you may say, okay, show me how to spin up a VM. And then what do we nerds do? We roll our eyes. And we roll our eyes because VMs, that's like talking about the original Ford automobile. That's the horn, what it sounded like, I think. So, that is so old school, it's ridiculous. And so now I know what you're thinking. Kevin's probably like, oh, containers. Yeah, it's all about containers. No, that's like a 1965 Chevy. So we are getting somewhat more modern when we talk about the container. The exciting thing now in cloud computing, Kev, is called serverless. So you're not going to build a VM. You're not going to build a container. There is this massive pool of VMs and containers that they're running for us behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz here. And when you have some architecture that needs some compute, it can just dip in to this massive pool of compute resources made available to us and just give us the milliseconds worth of compute that we need for the solution. So think about what we're saying here. You and I will, and I love to teach students how to leverage this. They're not going to be paying for any compute resources that they don't 100% use. In the old world, we would spin up a VM and it would just sit there waiting to do something, and we would be paying for it. Granted, it's only pennies, or it might even be free if you're on a free tier AWS account, but understand that once you're out of the free tier, you're eventually going to be paying per minute, maybe even per second for that VM. And now with serverless, you pay nothing when you don't actually need compute. And just to throw out the term, the AWS serverless compute platform is called Lambda. And one of the challenges with studying cloud is it is a big time vocabulary test, because you have to be able to recall, oh yeah, what does AWS call serverless? What does Google Cloud call serverless? What does Azure call serverless? And that's one of the challenges that we face, but flashcards will do you wonders there. Going into AWS now, right? This is the management console. This is the graphical user interface. And by the way, we don't have to use this. I mean, this is a great tool for us to learn AWS using this very, well thought through, just easy to use management console. But once we become more expert level, we begin using an AWS CLI. So for those command line interface lovers out there, no problem. There's an AWS CLI that you can utilize. And there's even SDKs and APIs that would allow you to, gosh, if you wanted to, create your own version of the management console. But this is what Kevin was talking about. I mean, my goodness, if it's been a while since you've logged into an AWS Management Console, you can be almost overwhelmed. I mean, you look in here and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these compute resources. And I feel like I'm pretty up to speed with AWS, but look at this, AWS Outposts. I'm not kidding. I have no idea what this is. So there is something being added all the time. And by the way, I can't wait to research this today. This is running AWS services on-prem. Wow. So now that I've distracted myself, let me go back to that total list of services that we were looking at. But isn't that fascinating that even for someone like me that's living and breathing AWS every day, there's always something being added. Look at the storage. There's Kevin's S3, but it's sitting right next to Elastic File Service and the File Service X or FSX service, which allows you to do Windows SMB file systems. There's Glacier for archiving. There's Storage Gateway, the AWS Backup. Look at all the database options. So it's just an ever-growing list of IT functionality that we can build. Now, I was talking about like a data lakehouse. And oh my gosh, like what is this? And how could I ever build something like that quickly? Well, the data warehouse facility or tool inside of AWS is called Redshift. And this is funny. Where is Redshift? It's not under the database category. Oh, goodness, where have they moved it? Well, the great news is we can always just directly search for a service. and there is AWS Redshift. By the way, funny story. It's always entertaining to research, at least for me it is, how did they come up with the name Redshift? A great example of this, and I got to admit, I was fairly embarrassed when I was working with the DNS service of AWS, and I was like, why do they call it Route 53? And oh my gosh, was I embarrassed when I Googled that. I know very well as a longtime CCNA that DNS relies on TCP and UDP ports 53, but my brain did not go there with Route 53. So Redshift, wow, this was fascinating to research. There is two schools of thought on the name. The first group of people claim that AWS called it Redshift because that's something that has to do with like quantum physics in astronomy. I don't buy it. I am in the school of thought that Oracle's corporate color is red, and you would use this to shift from red. That's the level of animosity there has been between Oracle and Amazon over the years. So whatever school of thought you think on the name, this is remarkable. So watch this, Kevin. We're going to come in here, and it sees that I have never launched Redshift. And so it brings us to this great page that gives us all kinds of information. My Brian Alderman example, Brian could come in here and quickly get up to speed with the basics, and then he can click a very happy button inside the management console to create a data warehouse, and it is a cluster. So we remember what clustered compute is all about. It's going to be based on these high performance virtual machines that build a data warehouse cluster. And these things are, again, high performance. They have high speed connectivity with each other. And Amazon did something remarkable here. There's a free trial. So Brian can spin up his mock test data lake house, and he can do all of that for free. Now, we'll have some fun here with Redshift Cluster 1 that I'm creating. We'll pretend it's a production cluster. And notice there's even a help me choose on what kind of sizing we should do. So let's say that we expect, that we're going to have 512 gig of data inside of this data warehouse. That's a lot of data. You think about, 10,000 records inside of like a comma separated value table. And, that thing's going to be a couple megs in size. So we're talking about an incredible amount of data here at the 512 gig. And is it time-based, or is the data not time-based? In other words, is it like inventory records and geography where time really doesn't factor in? And maybe that's exactly what our data is like. And it then asks, what's the estimated percent of data that your queries frequently access? Maybe it's going to be actually just like 8% of the overall data set that would be frequently accessed. And then they make a recommendation for us. And they say, look, for this type of implementation, if you go ahead and reserve it with us for a 3-year period, and that's really a short duration for a lot of like contractual IT engagements these days. it's going to give us a 60% discount. And the cost of this amazing data lake is going to be $2,639 per year. This is like, this might cause someone to faint because if they compare this to setting up a data warehouse cluster on-prem, the $2,639 per year, that wouldn't even cover licensing the software they're going to use, whether it be from Microsoft or Oracle or Mongo or whoever. So it's remarkable. Now we come down here and it says, what will your database be named? Dev is fine. It's filled in the default Redshift database port of 5439. It's an AWS user master username. Notice I do have to put in some type of secure password, and there'll be like password complexity checks done. And it looks like I haven't even met it. So, I violated it with a special character. There we go. And then the cluster permissions, which are optional for us to work with. So now I filled in I think just one piece of information, really, took their little survey on what I thought that I would need, and it is building our data warehouse solution. Look at that. So we can see the status. If I refresh, it's going to be, going through the creation and the initialization of this solution. So you talk about leveraging the expertise of all the brilliant minds of AWS. They just shielded us from installing the hardware for the cluster, installing the operating systems and the configuration of the cluster, installing the data warehouse software. I mean, all of that being done for us, and being done for us more cost effectively than ever. Now, what is this? Many of us know what a data warehouse is, and if you don't, it is just this high performance, hugely flexible data repository where you can take all of the data in all of its various forms of your organization, and you can dump it into the data warehouse. And then you can start doing analytics typically against all that data. Maybe it's things like every tweet that's ever mentioned you. You have that database of stuff, you dump that in there. Maybe it's your inventory, you dump that in there. Remember, format doesn't matter. The data warehouse is flexible and can accept all those different formats. Great. But what is this lakehouse thing all about? Well, AWS Redshift allows you to dump whatever data you need to into the data warehouse, but then it also, thanks to something called Redshift Streams, it allows Redshift to then reach out to things like Amazon S3 and run queries against data that's there. So I know this is kind of mind-blowing, but we've built our Redshift infrastructure. And sure, it's going to do great with the data we actually put into Redshift, but almost like an octopus, this Redshift has the ability to reach out and do analytics against stuff that's not in Redshift. So let's say Kevin has 3 gig in an S3 bucket of log information that he would like to analyze. he doesn't bother moving that into Redshift. He leaves it right where it is. He trains Redshift of the S3 location, and now Redshift can begin to work against that data set. He doesn't move it. He's already paying very little for the storage of S3. He's already achieving that benefit. So he just keeps achieving that benefit, and he's charged very little pennies for the Redshift analytics of that data store. So these are the remarkable technologies that are available to us at our fingertips, Kevin, that we might not have ever been able to afford on-prem. Or if we have lots of money and we can afford it, maybe the issue is we didn't have the knowledge of how to set it up.
Yeah, as you're going through all that, one of the things that comes to my mind is, wow, I've got to get on board here, because I was thinking, oh, I could use it for this and I could use it for this and it could save me money doing this. But I need to figure out, I need to go through some sort of training to know what, I need a next step. And we were talking just before you went into your demo about some of the different certifications that Amazon has. And I'd like to get your take on what sort of tracks do they have? What would you recommend? What's a good first step for people?
Yeah, let me zoom in on this, Kev, because right here in the same web browser that I was using for that demonstration, I did navigate over to the AWS certifications. And this is another kind of humorous situation. This is another place where I will go and I'll be surprised. And you might say, well, Anthony, wait a minute. You have most of these certs. What in the world would surprise you? Well, they're constantly adding specialty certifications. So I know this is a little weird, but let's start there. If we look over to the right for the amazing new creations, for instance, from Amazon, they can create a cert around that. It doesn't fit nicely into any track, but it's great news for us if it's our specialty. For instance, one of the things that I love to do is build custom Alexa skills. Oh, she heard me. Anyways, yeah, the Alexa Skill Builder specialty certification. Cancel. Oh my gosh, my Alexa is freaking out. Cancel. Thanks a lot. Go back to sleep. Don't listen to me. So the Alexa Skill Builder specialty certification, what a great thing for someone like me who's had fun building these A skills. And now I can prove that I have great Echo skill building. We'll just call it the Echo skill building capabilities. And it's amazing. So an ever-growing list of specialty certs, including data analytics. So if we were in the specialization of not really building Redshift data warehouses, but actually consuming the data that's inside them, if that was our specialty, performing data analytics at AWS, we could cert on that. But what your homework is going to be, Kevin, is you're going to be achieving, and I'm going to put you on the spot. This is going to be done by February 1st. Kevin will be announcing that he is an AWS certified cloud practitioner. And no problem, Kev. I'll have you there in a couple of days. And what this is, it's like the CCNA of AWS. Only I would caution you about this in that analogy I just made. The AWS certified cloud practitioner is infinitely easier than CCNA is, as a starting point here. So this is about 60 questions, I believe, multiple choice, that for the most part is like a vocabulary test, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. What is the serverless compute service in AWS? Lambda. You want to build a data warehouse. What do you use? Redshift. So, a big part of it is just being able to identify those services. There's certainly more to that exam than that, but that builds you a nice foundation. And then from there, you could jump right to the specialty certs, which have no prereq, but what students like to typically do is then go down either the architect path, where they're designing and guiding deployments of solutions, or the operations path, where someone designed it, their job is to run it, or the developer path. And I love how the developer path and the operations path converge, surprise, surprise, on the DevOps engineer professional certification. Of course, dev meets ops at DevOps, and that is a certification that I'm currently preparing for. It's going to take me quite a long time to achieve that certification, as you might guess, because the main reason, I am not a developer by trade. I love it. I love building silly little applications and things like that, but it's not my main role. So I struggle when it comes to some of the more intense dev topics there, but I'm going to learn them, because one of my goals, as you might guess, is I would love every single one of these certifications we see on screen. So a well thought through certification lineup, Kev, that gives us a nice strong foundation that we can build, gives us tracks that we can specialize on, and even gives us a potpourri of other certifications sound either brand new aspects of AWS that didn't fit anywhere else, or like if you look at security as a specialty cert, well, it applies everywhere. It's on the mind of the architect, it's on the mind of the operator, it's on the mind of the developer. So those are deep dives of tech that goes across everything.
Interesting. Now, I think you've got me on a phone. We were talking before. I believe some people are hearing a little bit of a looping. Is there a way to like muffle your phone or something for just a moment, or hold it up to your ear where we can chat without coming back through Skype?
There sure is.
All right.
I'm old school right now, Ken.
All right, I love it. I love it. That should, I think that should fix the issue. But yeah, let's talk about what all of our attendees and myself need to do, maybe as a next step. We've kicked around some different ideas, and one of the things we've been doing here at our company, KW Train, is we started offering a lot of live training last year. Now, I'm a huge fan, obviously, of on-demand training, but I love when we can do live training because we get to interact with the students. It's a much more in-depth training because you get to go, not tangents aren't always a bad thing. You get to kind of go off on tangents and talk about specific case studies that students might have. And Anthony and I were brainstorming last month, and we thought, what if we offered a live AWS training? And Anthony said, what if we don't just teach them one certification, we teach them a couple of certifications, or actually maybe like 3 certifications. So we've come up with this thing, or Anthony's developed this thing called, and by the way, I put the Q question up there. If you want to start asking questions, now's a good time to type those in. We'll be giving those to Anthony here in just a few moments. But let me tell you about this training we've got starting next week. It's a 3-in-1 certification live boot camp where Anthony's going to be leading you. It begins Monday. It's on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the next 2 weeks, starting next week. And the time is about 6 p.m. Eastern time to about 9 p.m. But one of the things I love about Anthony, I've been talking this up about him. Anthony is committed to a result, not a timeline. So it might be a few minutes after 9 and you're still cranking because he's not wanting, he wants to make sure you're done. He stops when he's done. So I love that. But there's a lot of stuff that he's going to be giving. He said, Kev, I'm going to give these people hands-on lab challenges. As he's already shown us, we can go out and get some free resources from Amazon. There's going to be practice exam type questions, downloadable class recordings with some memory aids. So this is really comprehensive where you get to interact with Anthony. Now, something we've been doing, some people I see, you said, bought it already, bought it already. That's awesome. But one of the things we talked about, we went back and forth on price a little bit because last year live at KW Train, we taught CCNA, Encore, and NARCI in the Cisco tracks, and every one of those courses cost $399 for the live experience. Well worth it. But we thought let's just do some testing. Let's do some price testing and see what would happen if we offered it for like something less than half of that, like $149 to get 3 certifications. And so far, because I announced this publicly on New Year's Day, we already have, I think it's safe to say that we've already got more people signed up for this than our last NARCI and Encore classes combined that we did back in November and December. So this thing is filling up quickly. I haven't even talked to Anthony since the latest numbers came in. There's a bunch of people signed up. We're doing really well with the enrollments. And I'm just excited about it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Anthony. You said it's a 3-in-1. Am I correct in saying this is going to get our students ready for the cloud practitioner certification, the solutions architect at both the associate and the professional level? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, and I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity because this is an idea that has literally been keeping me up at night, Kev. You see, if I teach someone cloud practitioner, I leave them hanging, right? I like, here's S3, here's what it does. Here's EC2, here's what it does. Here's Lambda, here's what it does. So I'm going through and I'm teaching them just the very basics of these important services, and they're left hanging. And, the answer is, okay, see you in our solutions architect training. And then they're taught that over again. And there's just an obnoxious amount of repetition. You're teaching S3 to someone in Cloud Practitioner, and then you're teaching S3 to someone in Solutions Architect Associate, and then you're teaching S3 to someone in the Professional Solutions Architect. Sure, you go deeper each time, but I was just looking at this and I was like, wow, what an exciting boot camp it would be if we cover S3 to the professional level of depth. And now what you have is you have students that are over prepared big time for Cloud Practitioner. They're over prepared big time for Solutions Architect Associate, and they hopefully have enough for the professional. I want to make it clear that students, and I'm so glad we have a lot of them because this is the year that Kevin Wallace and many of his students are going to be cloud certified, thank goodness. Students are going to be passing those first 2 in droves. There'll be folks passing Cloud Practitioner before we're even done with the 2-week program. But the professional solutions architect, that is eye-bleedingly difficult. I'll be going into why that is and why it may take 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts. It's very difficult, and we're certainly going to give you all of the resources you need to be successful there. It's just that I don't want anyone deluded about, oh, I take Anthony's boot camp for 2 weeks and I have all 3 of these certs within a week following, because that ending cert, that professional level solutions architect, very tough.
Yeah, it's like if you're teaching like a CCIE level course. You don't come into this saying, "Hey, we're gonna teach you CCIE and you're gonna go pass it." What I like to say for those really advanced trainings, because we don't know what a student's learning pattern is, or how they best learn, or how long they need to review things. But I think it's safe to say that you will dramatically improve their odds of passing that architect
Yes,
level.
I mean, right. They're going to remember what I said. They're going to be armed with a couple of things that are hugely important. They'll know exactly what's on that very difficult test. They'll know the exact types of questions that they're going to face. And then they'll not only have my recordings from the boot camp to review, but I'm also going to be giving them the exact source of the question content. So they're going to be armed with, at their fingertips, the literature, the case studies, the PDFs that they need to be successful. And Kevin, we decided to make this even sweeter. And we're giving a full cloud practitioner practice exam, a full solutions architect associate practice exam, and I wish I had never come up with this idea. It's the reason why I won't get much sleep for the next month. It's the solutions architect professional practice exam. And I write that a little bit every day, and I'll get that finished right just in time at the end of the 2-week program, because as you might guess, not only is a test like that difficult to take and pass, but it's also really pushing me to the limits of my knowledge to compose a accurate, well done practice exam, which of course I will succeed in achieving for our students.
People are, I'm just looking at the comments. People are like, can this be real? I know. You told me this, Anthony. You were like, Kev, are you serious? 149, and we had that discussion, and we did a little test, and people are actually finding it hard to believe that they're going to get the practice exams and all that training for those 3 different exams. It's and the hands-on lab challenges, but we may never do it at this price again. We're learning a lot through this price test, but hey, take advantage of it, because it starts Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now let's take a look at a couple of the questions and send those over to Anthony. I told him we wouldn't keep him on here more than about an hour, so we are quickly approaching that. Question from BN saying, on the AWS Bootcamp, will you be able to teach us how to configure and run either GNS3 or CML on AWS?
Absolutely. So those would be done through the EC2 compute service, and you will know the capabilities, you will know how you would go about doing something like that. You'll be able to run any workload that you're accustomed to on-prem in the cloud, with some minor exceptions that we'll get into. And I know what you're thinking. Come on, Anthony, give me an example of an exception. All right, let's talk about one briefly. So desktops, Windows 10 desktops. Well, that's slowly coming to AWS, but guess who beat AWS in that category? Of course, Microsoft did. So one of the reasons I am certified in all 3 of the big 3, Google, Microsoft, and AWS, is because I want to be able to go to my clients and say, are you looking for a virtual desktop solution where all of your Windows 10 is cloud-based? Well, sure enough, Azure is the platform you would choose for that as we record this webinar, because they have this incredible, slick Windows 10 virtual desktop experience there. Sure, that's going to come to AWS. Of course it will, but it will lag big time Microsoft themselves.
Another question coming in from Ray. Ray is asking, CompTIA's Cloud Plus certification, is that worth it? Should they do that before this, or will this take them from the ground up? What are your thoughts about CompTIA's Cloud Plus certification?
I love Cloud Plus. I'm Cloud Plus certified. I've taught 3 generations of that now, or no, 2. And there's even Cloud Essentials, right? To kind of that first stepping stone. Love that. Those are great, but they're not requirements here. And they're not requirements here because I'm going to be teaching as part of the 3-in-1, the Cloud Practitioner, which does start vendor agnostic. So one of the first things we'll discuss in session 1 is, what is cloud? What does it really mean to be cloud? And that's straight out of like a Cloud Plus, and we'll be teaching it as part of this bootcamp.
Got a few questions, people, because we always have a global audience in these sessions, and some people, they're going to be in different time zones, and they're thinking, I'm just going to be able to watch the replays. Is that going to be sufficient? What do you think?
That will be sufficient, and here's why. We will make sure, and I haven't even talked to Kevin about this yet, but Kevin and I will make sure that you have an efficient, effective, responsive way to get your questions to me. So if you're registered for this course and 6 p.m. my time zone in the evening when I'm at my best, see, it's, what is it? It's almost 3 p.m. my time zone. I'm just now waking up. I'm a night owl, right? So I did these sessions at night when I'm on fire, and maybe that's 4 a.m. for you. I don't blame you. You're not going to be there, but you're going to have the recording, and Kevin and I will make sure as you're going through that recording and you have questions, you have a way to get those questions to me. We'll ensure that. And I will be responding to every single one of your questions. So you haven't missed out on that. And I'm going to be assigning hands-on labs for completion using a free tier, totally free AWS account. And you'll be able to participate in those hands-on labs and see me walking through best practice solutions. So you're not going to really miss out on anything except making fun of me in the live event. That's all you'll miss.
One of the questions coming in from Ken on YouTube is asking, what can I download? I mean, you said there's going to be replays available. Can we download those replays? Yes, you'll be able to download those replays. And let's see, we'll do 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. Let's see. Do you cover AWS Advanced Networking? And I'm not really sure what they're referring to there. Is that like a thing in the track, AWS Networking and Security?
Yeah, so Kevin, most of my students have come from, I'll be honest, a Cisco background. And they are experts at the traditional on-prem network. Great news, because they're going to have a head start as we discuss the advanced networking components of AWS. And oh my gosh, that question just made me realize something. Kevin, this 3-in-1 bootcamp, sure, it's focused on Cloud Practitioner, Solutions Architect, Associate, and Pro, but do you realize that we're also getting students a huge head start in advanced networking specialty, security specialty, and database specialty? So we're also coincidentally getting them well on their way through 3 different specialty certifications.
Awesome. Now I'm seeing a lot of questions sort of asking the same thing, kind of repeating. So let me just sum up some of the big ones that we're getting, make sure that everybody's clear on these answers. Oh, you know what? It just occurred to me. We've already had a bunch of orders already come in. I'm not sure I've even said, hey, go to this URL to purchase, but you want to go to kwtrain.com/AWS. That's kwtrain.com/AWS. I think we've talked about this, and I got another question saying, okay, I understand that those first two, yeah, we're going to be able to. Well, actually, they were asking about the last one. They said the solutions architect at the professional level. Yeah, maybe we need some extra study beyond, maybe not, but maybe we need some beyond the boot camp. But is it realistic to think that foundational level, the cloud practitioner, and the associate level of solutions architect, is it reasonable to believe that, yeah, we're going to be ready for those after the boot camp? And I think, Anthony, your answer was an emphatic yes on that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be really, I know this is going to happen. By the third session of, we have 6 sessions, right? Yeah. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. By the Friday of week 1, Kev, we're going to have celebrations going on of cloud practitioners. You watch. They're not going to wait for all 6 sessions. They'll have already achieved that. And then we're going to have celebrations on the last day of class of solutions architects. Yeah. And then the professional level, gosh, as you've alluded to, as I made clear, sure, there's going to be some that get that 1 week after the boot camp, and that's because they were already architecting solutions in AWS. But for the average mortal that's like, hey, I'm new to this, yeah, there could be weeks, maybe even months of additional study. I can't make promises there because, again, and by the way, let me not beat around the bush here at all on this topic. One of the reasons that exam is so incredibly difficult is that you're going to get a scenario, let's say of 3 paragraphs of what someone needs. And then there's going to be, let's say, 4 options, paragraphs describing the solutions, and all 4 are valid. So your job is going to be to really carefully parse those in your mind and come up with the best for whatever pillar of excellence is the biggest concern. For instance, it may be you got to do this with data warehouse, 4 different solutions, but the question would be, what would be the most cost optimal? So remember, all 4 work, but one of them would be the best way to do it from a cost perspective, and you need to be able to identify that. And I mean, this is one example of a question that's very difficult.
All right. Well, it is about that time. We were going to go ahead and wrap it up for the day. Anthony, I cannot thank you enough. It's always great spending time with you, and I have learned a lot. And for those people that are going to be watching it on recording, that's going to be me. I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm on the treadmill every morning, pretty much watching some sort of training video on my iPad. I'm going to be watching Anthony on my iPad. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. And I'm not concerned at all that I'm not going to be there for the live event. So if you can be, you get to answer your questions real time. You feel it's more immersive. But yeah, I'm gonna squeeze it in as well, and super excited about it. Thank everyone for taking some time to join us today. Again, if you want to sign up for Anthony's class at I never thought if we dropped the price so much, people would actually be skeptical that we can't be getting all this for $149. But yeah, so the question I have for you is, do you think getting prepared for these exams is worth $149? If so, this is a no-brainer. If not, then find something that is going to pay off for you and go down that track. But I think for many of us, and I include me in that, this is a no-brainer. I've seen it for years, and now I'm feeling the pressure. I've got to learn cloud. So if we have this discussion in 2022, I hope to have maybe, well, at least that base certification, but I'd love to have a couple of those certifications that Anthony talked about as well. Thank you, everyone. We will talk to you, and Anthony will talk to many of you on Monday, next Monday, and that's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again, everyone. I'll put the link up in case you haven't jotted it down yet. I'll leave that up for about 10 minutes. Talk to you next time.